There are moments in life when silence feels like abandonment. You pray, you wait, you look around for evidence that God is involved, and all you hear is quiet. It is in those moments that many people conclude God has stepped back. But silence is not absence. In fact, some of the most important work God does happens beyond the range of our awareness. Just as a foundation is laid underground before a building ever rises into view, God's care often operates beneath the surface of our understanding. Human psychology is wired to trust what is visible. We believe what we can measure, track, and explain. Yet life itself proves that the most powerful forces are often unseen. Thoughts shape behavior, beliefs shape destiny, and love itself cannot be touched, only experienced. In the same way, God's care does not always announce itself with dramatic signs. Sometimes it shows up as restraint instead of reward, protection instead of promotion, or delay instead of instant relief. What feels like nothing happening may actually be everything being arranged. Consider how often you've been disappointed by something that later turned out to be a mercy. A door didn't open, a plan collapsed, a relationship ended, and at the time it felt like loss. But with distance, clarity comes. You realize what you were spared from, what you were redirected toward, or how you were strengthened through the process. That wasn't luck. That was care operating quietly, intelligently, purposefully. From a philosophical perspective, this challenges our obsession with control. We assume that if we are not actively steering the outcome, then no one is. But faith asks for a deeper humility, the recognition that our limited perspective cannot fully grasp a larger design. God sees the entire timeline, not just the moment that frustrates us. What we interpret as delay may actually be precision. What we call silence may be discernment at work. Psychologically, this truth offers profound relief. Anxiety thrives on the belief that everything depends on us. Peace begins when we understand that it doesn't. God's care does not require constant reassurance. It requires trust. Trust is not passive. It is an active decision to believe that unseen work is still real work. When you stop demanding immediate proof, you begin to notice subtle evidence. Strength you didn't think you had, resilience that surprised you, opportunities that appeared just in time. These are not coincidences, they are confirmation. God is not reacting to your life. He is already ahead of it. So if today you feel overlooked, uncertain, or weary, remember this. The absence of visible movement does not mean the absence of divine care. It means the work is deeper than the surface. And here is the thought to carry with you. If God is already taking care of what you cannot see, the wisest thing you can do is walk forward in faith, not fear. One of the greatest misunderstandings people carry is the belief that delay means rejection. When something does not happen on our timetable, the mind rushes to judgment. We assume we have been overlooked, forgotten, or deemed unworthy. Yet delay, when viewed through a deeper lens, is often not a verdict against us, but a process working for us. Timing is not a punishment, it is a principle. Psychologically, the human desire for immediacy is rooted in our need for certainty. We feel safe when outcomes are predictable. Waiting unsettles us because it forces us to live with unanswered questions. But faith, by its very nature, is the willingness to exist without full explanation. It teaches us that meaning does not always reveal itself at once. What we call waiting is often a period of internal alignment, where character catches up to calling, and wisdom grows strong enough to support what is coming. Consider how premature success can become a burden rather than a blessing. When a person receives influence without maturity, opportunity without discipline, or abundance without purpose, the gift itself can become destructive. A delay, then, is not cruelty, it is protection. It is preparation. God understands that readiness is not measured by desire, but by stability. He does not rush outcomes that could collapse under their own weight. From a philosophical standpoint, this challenges the idea that progress is always linear. Growth often happens invisibly before it becomes obvious. A seed spends more time hidden in darkness than it does breaking through the soil. Yet no one would say the seed is failing during that period. It is becoming. In the same way, your unseen seasons are not wasted time. They are formative time. Waiting also exposes what we truly trust. If our peace disappears when answers are delayed, then our faith may be rooted more in outcomes than in God Himself. But when trust remains steady despite uncertainty, it reshapes the inner life. Patience is not passive resignation. It is active endurance. It is the quiet strength that continues forward without needing immediate applause or confirmation. Many people look back on their lives and recognize that the moments they once questioned were the moments that saved them. A job not received, a path not taken, a dream postponed. These were not closed doors, but carefully timed ones. God's wisdom operates on a scale larger than our impatience. He is not late. He is exact. So when you find yourself in a season of waiting, resist the urge to interpret it as failure. Instead, ask what is being formed within you. Ask what stability, humility, or insight is taking root beneath the surface. Delays refine perception. They teach us that fulfillment is not seized, it is entrusted. And here is the truth to reflect on. What God prepares you for is always greater than what you are impatient to receive. So do not rush the very process designed to sustain you. Life is not lived on a single emotional level. It moves in seasons, some marked by momentum and clarity, others by struggle and uncertainty. What often unsettles people is the assumption that God's presence is tied to prosperity, that strength means success and difficulty means distance. But the deeper truth is this: God's care is not seasonal, even when life is. He sustains you not only when things are going well, but especially when they are not. Psychologically, human beings draw confidence from stability. When routines hold and plans succeed, we feel capable and secure. But when those structures are disrupted, through loss, disappointment, or failure, we can begin to question everything, including our faith. Yet this is precisely where God's sustaining power becomes most evident. He does not remove every hardship, but He provides what is necessary to endure it. Strength shows up when you should have none. Peace appears where panic once lived. That is not self-generated resilience. That is support beyond the self. Philosophically, this challenges the idea that meaning is dependent on comfort. Some of the most transformative insights are born not from ease, but from endurance. Struggle forces reflection. It strips away illusion and reveals what truly matters. God uses these moments not to weaken you, but to deepen you. He sustains your inner life while the outer circumstances remain unresolved, reminding you that identity is not determined by environment. Even in seasons of success, God's sustaining role remains vital. Prosperity has its own dangers: pride, distraction, and the illusion of self-sufficiency. When things are going well, it is easy to believe that strength comes from effort alone. But success without grounding can quietly erode purpose. God sustains you by keeping you anchored, reminding you that achievement is not the source of worth, and that gratitude is the safeguard of the soul. Across every stage of life, God provides what is required for that moment. Not always what you want, but what you need. When energy fades, He offers renewal. When clarity disappears, He offers guidance. When hope feels distant, He offers perseverance. This is not a dramatic rescue from reality. It is a steady presence within it. Many people underestimate how far they have come because they focus on where they are still lacking. But survival itself is evidence of sustaining grace. You are here because something held you together, when you could not hold yourself together. The fact that you are still standing, still thinking, still believing, however imperfectly, is proof that God has been carrying more of the weight than you realize. So when life feels uneven, remember this: God does not abandon you in hardship or forget you in abundance. He remains constant while everything else shifts. And the thought to carry forward is this: if God has sustained you through every season so far, then you can move into the next one with confidence, knowing you are not relying on your strength alone. There comes a point in every life when the weight becomes too heavy to carry alone. Not because of weakness, but because human capacity has limits. We reach moments where advice falls short, encouragement feels distant, and even our own strength no longer answers the call. It is in these moments that the illusion of self-sufficiency breaks down, and something deeper is revealed. You are not alone in your battles, even when it feels that way. Psychologically, isolation intensifies suffering. When the mind believes it must fight alone, fear multiplies and perspective narrows. We replay problems without resolution, imagining worst-case outcomes, convincing ourselves that no help is coming. Yet one of the most stabilizing truths a person can grasp is this: burden shared is burden reduced. Faith introduces a profound form of companionship, not always through people, but through the assurance that the struggle itself is seen and carried by God. This does not mean that God removes every conflict. Often the battle remains, but the weight shifts. Strength appears that you did not summon. Endurance lasts longer than logic would allow. You continue even when motivation is gone. That quiet persistence is not accidental. It is evidence of divine involvement, working not by eliminating opposition, but by sustaining you through it. Philosophically, this reframes the meaning of struggle. If life were only about avoiding hardship, then difficulty would signal failure. But if life is about formation, then struggle becomes a context for growth. God does not observe your battles from a distance. He engages them with you, not always in ways that feel dramatic, but in ways that are effective. He steadies the mind, restrains despair, and prevents collapse at critical moments. Many people underestimate the unseen battles they have already survived, emotional wounds that did not destroy you, temptations that did not define you, moments when giving up seemed reasonable, yet you continued. Those victories were not random. They were supported. Even when no one else understood what you were facing, you were not facing it alone. There is also humility in this truth. It frees you from the pressure to be invincible. Faith does not demand that you pretend to be strong. It invites you to be honest about your need. God's involvement is not activated by perfection, but by trust. When you acknowledge that you cannot fight everything on your own, you open yourself to strength beyond your own limits. So when the struggle feels personal, prolonged, or unfair, resist the lie that you have been abandoned to it. You are being accompanied through it. The battle may be intense, but it is not solitary. And here is the thought to leave with you: if you are still standing in the middle of the fight, it is because you are being held. So move forward with courage, knowing you never carry the weight alone. One of the most difficult ideas for the human mind to accept is that pain can serve a purpose. When hardship enters our lives, the instinctive response is to resist it, question it, or resent it. We ask what went wrong, who is to blame, or why God would allow such disruption. Yet history, psychology, and lived experience all point to a deeper reality. Adversity is often the place where the most meaningful transformation occurs. Psychologically, challenge activates growth. Without resistance, muscles weaken. Without pressure, character remains untested. Comfort can preserve, but it rarely strengthens. Trials force us to confront our assumptions about ourselves, our limits, our fears, our values. They expose what we rely on when external supports fall away. God does not waste these moments. He uses them to refine perception, deepen humility, and strengthen resolve. Philosophically, suffering disrupts the illusion that life is meant to be easy or predictable. It reminds us that meaning is not found in the absence of difficulty, but in how we respond to it. God's purpose in challenge is not to break the individual, but to reshape the inner life. Hardship has a way of stripping away what is superficial and revealing what is essential. In that sense, pain becomes clarifying. It sharpens awareness and redirects focus toward what truly matters. Many people discover capacities they never knew they possessed precisely because they were placed in situations they never wanted. Courage emerges when fear must be faced. Patience grows when circumstances cannot be rushed. Compassion deepens when suffering becomes personal. These qualities are not theoretical virtues, they are forged in experience. God allows challenge not as punishment, but as preparation for greater responsibility, deeper empathy, and stronger faith. It is important to understand that purpose does not mean every pain is explained in the moment. Some lessons only become clear with time and reflection. What matters is not immediate understanding, but trust that difficulty is not meaningless. God's work in your life is not limited to moments of clarity and success. It continues in confusion and struggle. Even when you cannot trace his hand, you can trust his intent. This perspective also changes how we measure progress. Instead of asking only what we have gained or lost, we begin to ask who we are becoming. Challenges may alter your plans, but they can also strengthen your character. They may delay outcomes, but they can deepen wisdom. God's purpose operates on a longer horizon than our discomfort allows us to see. So when you encounter hardship, resist the temptation to see it as an interruption. It may be an invitation to grow, to reflect, to mature in ways ease never could. And here is the thought to carry forward. If your trials are shaping you rather than destroying you, then every challenge you face is not an obstacle to God's plan, but an instrument within it. At the center of everything we've been talking about, unseen care, divine timing, sustaining strength, shared battles, and purposeful challenges, there is one decisive act that determines how all of it is experienced: trust. Trust is not an emotion, it is a posture of the mind and heart. It is the choice to rest in what you believe to be true, even when circumstances argue otherwise. Without trust, life becomes a constant negotiation with fear. With trust, peace becomes possible, even in uncertainty. Psychologically, anxiety is born from the belief that we must control outcomes to survive. The mind scans the future for threats, rehearses worst case scenarios, and exhausts itself trying to manage what cannot be managed. Trust interrupts this cycle. It does not deny reality, but it reframes it. When you trust that God is already at work, the mind is freed from the impossible burden of omniscience. You are no longer required to know everything, fix everything, or anticipate everything. Peace begins where that pressure ends. This kind of peace is not passivity. It is not ignoring problems or refusing responsibility. It is clarity without panic. It is engagement without desperation. Philosophically, trust acknowledges human limitation while affirming divine sufficiency. It accepts that there are forces, timings, and outcomes beyond personal control, and that surrendering them is not weakness, but wisdom. Many people confuse trust with certainty, but trust often exists precisely because certainty does not. You do not trust when everything is obvious. You trust when it is not, and that is why trust has power. It stabilizes the inner life while the outer world remains unsettled. It allows you to act responsibly without being consumed by fear of failure. It replaces the constant question, "What if this goes wrong?" with the steadier conviction, "Even if it does, I am not alone." Peace follows trust not because problems disappear, but because perspective changes. When you believe that God is already taking care of what concerns you, urgency softens into patience. Fear loosens its grip. You begin to sleep better, think clearer, and choose wiser. Peace is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of confidence in the midst of it. This trust also reshapes behavior. It produces humility instead of arrogance, courage instead of avoidance, perseverance instead of despair. When trust is genuine, it shows up in action, in how you speak, how you wait, how you respond under pressure. It does not make life easy, but it makes life steady. Ultimately, trust is a daily decision. It is not something you achieve once and never revisit. Each day presents new reasons to worry and new opportunities to trust. The question is not whether uncertainty will come, but how you will meet it. So here is the final thought to carry with you. When you place your trust in God's care, peace becomes your posture, and from that place of peace, you can move forward with clarity, courage, and purpose.